Have you ever had someone take advantage of you and you just reach a breaking point? Well, that's exactly what happened to me with Karen, my next-door neighbor. She didn't just take little things. She was constantly stealing electricity from my outlet. Day after day, I find my power drained, and no matter how many times I politely asked her to stop, she kept pushing her luck. At first, I tried being nice, thinking maybe she didn't realize what she was doing. But it quickly became clear that this wasn't a mistake. She was deliberately tapping into my power whenever she needed it, and no apology, no I'm sorry, nothing, just more excuses. I had to come up with something that would make her understand how serious this was. But how do you deal with a neighbor like that? Well, I decided to take things into my own hands in a way she never expected. What did I do? Let's just say it involved a little creative thinking and a whole lot of electricity. But before I tell you how it all went down, you might want to stay tuned, because what happened next was shocking, in more ways than one. Stick around for part 2, where I show you how this little solution played out. Let me give you a bit of background on Karen. She wasn't exactly the friendly neighbor type. I'd moved into this neighborhood a few months before everything went down, and at first, I thought we'd get along just fine. But it didn't take long for me to realize that Karen had a way of getting what she wanted, and didn't really care about the people around her. She'd knock on my door at the weirdest times, asking for favors like borrowing things I never saw her use, or even asking to use my Wi-Fi. The electricity situation started out small, just a phone charger plugged into my outlet here and there. I didn't mind at first, but then it became a pattern. Soon enough, she was running long extension cords from her place to mine, and I found out she was using my power to run her air conditioner, lights, and even her appliances. I don't know how she thought she could get away with it, but it was clear she had no intention of stopping. I couldn't just keep paying for her bills, right? So I decided I had to act. I knew I couldn't confront her directly again. She had a way of spinning things into her favor, making me look unreasonable. I needed a way to send a message she'd never forget. That's when the idea hit me, something a little out of the box. I'd turn her actions into something she'd never expect. But would it work? Stay tuned. By now, I'd started to feel trapped. I couldn't understand why Karen didn't just take responsibility for her actions. I mean, we were both adults. Didn't she know that what she was doing was wrong? I kept thinking maybe I was overreacting, but deep down, I knew I wasn't. It was more than just the electricity, it was about respect. She didn't respect my space, my property, or even the simple fact that we were neighbors. It felt like she was taking advantage of me, and I'd had enough. The hardest part was deciding how to handle it. I didn't want to escalate things and risk making things even worse. There were other neighbors in the building, and I didn't want them to get caught in the crossfire. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized that I needed to make her feel the consequences of her actions. I couldn't keep letting her get away with it. That's when I remembered an old project I'd worked on in college, an electric fence circuit. I'd tinkered with it for a few weeks, mostly as a challenge to myself. It was simple, but effective. The thought struck me like a lightning bolt. What if I could turn her daily power theft into a lesson? What if she wasn't expecting a shock when she thought she could just plug into my outlet like it was hers? I could already hear her excuses in my head. It was just a little bit of power. Yeah, right. So I decided to make the idea a reality. I didn't just want to stop her. I wanted her to realize she couldn't take advantage of people without consequences. But how exactly could I set it up without her noticing? Would it backfire? And what if she figured it out before it was too late? The tension was building, and the closer I got to executing this plan, the more I second-guessed myself. Would I be crossing a line? The more I thought about the plan, the more I realized how risky it was. I couldn't afford to get caught. Not only would I be in serious trouble with Karen, but I could also face legal consequences if anything went wrong. Yet, the idea of her continuing to steal from me, without any regard for my boundaries, made my blood boil. I was at a crossroads, and the pressure was mounting. I couldn't keep living like this, always walking on eggshells around her. The more I prepared, the more meticulous I became. I researched electric fence circuits, making sure I understood every detail. I wasn't about to make a mistake, especially with someone like Karen who could twist anything to her advantage. My mind raced with thoughts of what would happen when she plugged in again. What if she didn't notice the change? What if I made the circuit too strong? What if it ended up worse than I anticipated? Every scenario felt like it could go wrong, but the thought of her stealing from me one more time felt even worse. I spent the next few days carefully setting up the system, sneaking around to make sure no one saw me working. Every time I heard her talking to someone outside, my heart skipped a beat, wondering if she was going to figure it out. But each time she seemed oblivious, as if she had no idea what I was about to do. Finally, the day came. The moment of truth. I had everything set up just the way I wanted it, the electric fence circuit hidden and waiting. I could already hear her footsteps getting closer as she came outside. My palms were sweaty, and my nerves were on edge. She was walking toward my outlet, just like she always did. Was she going to plug in again, without any idea of what was coming? Would it work, or had I gone too far this time? I could barely breathe as I waited for the inevitable to unfold. Would I finally get my message across, or had I made a huge mistake? I was on the edge of my seat, watching her move closer, my heart thumping in my chest. Everything was ready. The circuit was set up. All I needed was for her to plug in, and well, that was when I realized I'd made a huge mistake. As she approached the outlet, I noticed something that made my stomach drop. She wasn't alone. Karen had brought her boyfriend, Dave, with her. I'd never seen him much before, but from the few times I had, I knew he wasn't exactly someone you'd want to mess with. He was a big guy, and there was a sharpness to him that made me uneasy. I froze for a moment, watching them both. They were laughing about something, unaware of what was about to happen. But now I had a new problem. Dave was standing directly between me and the outlet, blocking any chance I had to stop Karen before it was too late. I cursed myself. Why hadn't I thought of this? Of course she'd bring him along. Karen didn't just steal from me when it was convenient. She did it whenever she felt like it. And now, with Dave around, it felt like the stakes had just gotten a whole lot higher. I couldn't back out now. There was no way I could just go up to them and explain what I had set up. But as I watched Dave eye the cord she was about to plug in, I realized something else. He wasn't just casually looking. He was eyeing the outlet like he knew something was off. Was he suspicious? Did he somehow sense the trap I'd set? Or had he noticed the faint hum of the electricity in the air? My pulse raced. I had to act fast, but the tension was unbearable. With Dave in the way, would I be able to stop Karen before things escalated? What if he stopped her and discovered what I'd done? The thought of him confronting me made my blood run cold. There was no turning back now. The situation was spiraling, and I had no idea how it was going to play out. Would I end up regretting this? Or was I about to finally teach Karen a lesson she'd never forget? The seconds felt like hours as I watched Karen's hand reach for the plug. Dave was still standing there, looking at the outlet suspiciously, but he hadn't said anything yet. My heart was pounding in my chest as I tried to stay calm. I knew this was it. She was about to plug into the outlet, and I couldn't stop it now. I couldn't let her get away with it again. But then, just as her fingers brushed against the cord, Dave stepped forward, his voice breaking the silence. "Wait, Karen." Karen looked up at him, confused. "What is it?" "I've been thinking about this for a while," he said slowly, his eyes still fixed on the outlet. "Something's off. You've been running power from here for weeks now, right? You've been stealing from this guy, his electricity, his stuff, without even asking." My breath caught in my throat. For a moment, I thought I'd misheard him. Was he actually standing up for me? Karen blinked, clearly taken aback. "What are you talking about, Dave? You're being paranoid. He's just being dramatic, that's all." But Dave didn't back down. "No, I'm not being paranoid. I've been noticing it too. The lights flicker, the high bills, the way you just keep taking without thinking about it. It's not right, Karen." I stood frozen, not sure whether to say anything, but it seemed like the moment of truth was finally here. I didn't have to say a word. Dave had done what I couldn't. He was calling her out for everything she'd done. Karen's face twisted in frustration, her hands dropping to her sides as she glared at him. But the damage had already been done. Dave turned to face me, giving me a long, hard look. "I'm sorry, man," he said. "I didn't know she was doing this to you." Before I could even respond, Karen stormed off, muttering under her breath. As she disappeared around the corner, Dave turned back to me. "I'll make sure she doesn't do this again. You have my word." I couldn't believe it. After all the frustration, the sleepless nights, and the anxiety, it was finally over. Karen was called out, and the power theft had ended. But just as I thought the storm had passed, Dave dropped a bombshell. "I didn't want to mention it earlier," he said, his voice quieter now. "But, I've been keeping an eye on your outlets too. Karen wasn't the only one using your power. I've been using it for my own stuff when you weren't around." My jaw dropped. What? The whole time, Dave had been secretly using my power too. It wasn't just Karen, he'd been in on it too. I stood there stunned, as Dave awkwardly shuffled his feet. I wasn't sure how to ask, but after all this, I guess I owe you an apology too. You cool with that? I didn't even know what to say. Here I was, thinking I'd finally gotten rid of the problem, only to realize the real culprit was standing right in front of me the whole time. What a twist, the saga wasn't over yet. I stood there, speechless for a moment. It was hard to wrap my head around it. After everything with Karen, I never expected Dave to be involved too. But as much as I was frustrated, I couldn't help but appreciate the honesty. At least now, I knew the full picture. It wasn't just Karen who had been taking advantage of me, it was both of them. I looked at Dave and took a deep breath. "All right, Dave, I appreciate you coming clean, but this can't happen again. I've got to set boundaries." He nodded, looking genuinely remorseful. "You're right, I messed up. I'll make it right." And just like that, it was over. Karen, still furious, kept her distance, but I never had to worry about her stealing my power again. Dave kept his word, and we worked out a solution. He helped me with a few repairs around my place as a way of making up for the past, and we moved forward. In the end, the whole ordeal taught me something valuable. Sometimes you have to take matters into your own hands to protect yourself, but you also need to know when to stand your ground and set clear boundaries. I was finally able to reclaim my space and my peace of mind. And Karen, let's just say she hasn't borrowed anything from me since.